All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Lilith. I'm based in IDP Singapore, your host and moderator for today's session in our IELTS Masterclass workshop with our IELTS expert, together with my other co-host and other co-moderator from other Southeast Asian country. So first, let me introduce someone from Indonesia. Hi, William.
Hello, Lilith.
Yep. Would you like to greet our participants for today?
Excuse me?
Would you like to greet our participants? Would you like to welcome our participants today?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So hello everyone. I'm William from IDP Indonesia. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. And we also have our representative from Thailand, New. Hi, New. Hi, New. Are you with us? Okay, I'm not sure if there's any issue with news connection. However, if you have any questions later on, feel free to drop us your message in the chat box or in the Q&A box, be it with me directly or with to William or with you as well. All right, so wondering what is this IELTS Masterclass workshop? This session basically focuses on 4 IELTS skills, so listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So from this workshop, we hope you will get practical tips on how to enhance your English skills and avoid common mistakes. And hopefully you'll better understand the assessment criteria and how your skills will be scored. And finally, you'll learn from an official IELTS expert who will guide you and answer your questions. So if you are joining us via Zoom, feel free to leave your questions, as I've mentioned, in the Q&A box or in the chat box. And if you are following along with us on Facebook Live, please share your questions in the comment section, and I will read this out to our IELTS expert at the end of the webinar. Okay, and finally, please help me in welcoming our IELTS expert today. She is a highly trained educator who has been teaching the English language and IELTS preparatory at tertiary institutions here in Singapore for the past 20 years now. And she has helped set up a writing center in one of the universities she's lecturing in. So without further ado, let us all welcome our IELTS expert today, Mei Koh. Over to you, Mei. How are you? Welcome back. You're on mute, Mei. Please unmute your mic.
Hi, sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, welcome everyone, and let's get started with the masterclass.
Thank you.
Glad that you can all join us this evening. So, all right. So as Lilith said, tonight I hope that you can gain some practical tips. We'll talk a little bit about how you will be scored and how you can avoid costly mistakes. There's an opportunity to ask questions throughout, or you can post your questions in the chat, or you can wait and have, we have a Q&A that comes up at the end of the entire session where there's more time and we can discuss some of the questions that you have. Okay. We might have some live polling toward the end, but not to worry, you'll be prompted on the screen if that's the case. So you should have access to the masterclass pack and in PDF. So this pack has some examples of sample answers for some of the writing questions. And there's also two of the criteria, what do you call it, matrices at the end of the PDF, where there are descriptors of what you need to do in order to achieve a certain band score. And that there's one for writing and one for speaking in the back. So it's very useful. I will refer probably to the criteria, at some point when you can look at it. You can also download the criteria on your own, from the internet. IELTS, or the IELTS organization, does publish a public version as well. All right, so let's look at some of the aims then you should have. So you're highly encouraged to improve your English on an everyday basis. Because IELTS is a proficiency test, it's a test of your ability to use English, not how much you know about the language. So you need to do more than just practice tests. Now, of course, the best is for you to have some experience doing practice tests, but again, that's not how you train for the test. I'll talk a little bit about how IELTS is assessed so you can kind of assess yourself and you know where you're at, and tell you some of the language skills that the examiners will be looking for so that you can target your practice. Okay. Now, as I said before, that we will look at some common mistakes that you can avoid, seeing as so many people have taken this test before, and there are things that definitely you really shouldn't do. Okay, so we'll give you some tips on that. So just a quick reminder, if you haven't already looked this up, but I suppose that those of you who signed up for this masterclass actually have decided whether you're doing the academic test or the general training test. So the IELTS is designed for two purposes. One obviously is for university entrance. So people take it, and each university has its own requirement for what level or what band score that you need in order to get into certain programs. And universities don't necessarily just have one band score. They have different band scores for entry, minimum band scores for entry for different programs. So some programs have a higher band score requirement and others have lower. General training, the general training is the IELTS designed for people who are migrating to other countries being Canada, Australia, and the UK. Those three countries often require English competency as part of their, admission, residency admission requirement. So whichever one that you're taking, okay, we'll try and talk a little bit about both today. Of course, you should try to find out more about, specifically about the one that you want to take. But half the test will be the same for both, and the other half will be, there will be differences. So I'll let you know where those differences are. Okay. Whatever it is, whether you're migrating or trying to get into an educational institution, you need to find out what the minimum score is that you need to get in there so that you know what to aim for. Okay. IELTS is, designed, the results are given to you in the form of band scores, meaning ability levels, rather than say percentages or hard numbers. So it's basically, going from zero being someone who didn't even attempt the test, from 1, which is, not able to use the language everywhere, to expert user, which is 9. So 9 is most often for people who are as speakers. So 9 is not a common score for people to get unless they are native speakers or native speaker level. Okay. So most of you who are going to universities would be aiming for 7s and 8s. And even now for migration, some of the levels have gone up in of English competency. So most people would need at least a 7 score. Okay, so you can read those to find out what that means when we say a 7 or when we say a 6. Just to run through the structure of the test very quickly. So those of you who have taken the test, this will be a review for you. But for those of you who've never taken the test, it's just to show you how the test is divided up, which components and so on. Okay. Okay. Yeah, somebody mentioned B1 and B2, but those are not used in IELTS. Those are for the CEFLR European framework. So you should go by the IELTS scoring, which is 1 to 9, not 0, hopefully not 0. If you're at a 0, don't bother taking the test, right? All right, so the overall test time is 2 hours and 44 minutes. Now it says here there's a 10-minute transfer time, but that only applies to paper-based, the paper-based test. And we'll talk a bit about that. But for the most part, the test is 2 hours and 44 minutes in total. Now, okay, so you will see here that, for example, for listening tasks are the same for academic and general training. It's 30 minutes, 4 sections, and 40 questions, okay? Then you have reading and writing, both of which are, the structure is exactly the same in terms they have 3 sections, 40 questions, and 2 tasks. 2 tasks for writing at 60 minutes, but it shows you here as 2 separate things, meaning the content of the reading for academic is different from the content of the general training. The same thing with the writing, and I'll show you that there are some huge differences between academic writing and general training writing. And then we go to speaking part, which is 11 to 14 minutes. It has 3 parts, but so listening and speaking are the same for both academic and general training in terms of the questions that are asked, okay? So now this is probably something you've already decided unless you've not taken the test yet, but basically you have 2 choices. You have computer delivered test or the paper-based test. Now, for paper-based test, I guess for those of you who are more comfortable with that, you have to make arrangements because the dates are not as often, but the computer delivered tests are delivered, are offered almost every day. Now, check with your country office, obviously. And the only difference are that the result turnover is faster for computer delivered test, and it's 13 days for the paper-based test. All right, let's start with the reading test. So the reading test, the timing is 60 minutes, 3 sections, 40 questions. But the academic test is simple in the sense that the topics are of a general interest nature, but they are factual articles. Okay, so there won't be any stories or fictional narrative type things. And a number of them are, argumentative or descriptive in nature. So we're talking about basic articles about science, articles about technology, articles about various types of common topics. Okay, now the 3 sections means that you have 3 readings, and you have to complete the readings and the questions within the 60 minutes. General training, it's also 60 minutes, 3 sections, 40 questions, but your questions are very different, okay? And I'll explain that later. You will have reading topics that are more of a practical nature rather than sort of more general topics. So what are some of the reading skills that are required to do this? So basically, as I mentioned before, IELTS is a test of your language proficiency. So they're testing how well you can use the language, not how much you know about the language. So that means it's testing your process of using language. And in the case of reading skills, the reading component, they're looking at your reading skills. The test questions are designed to test your reading skills of skimming, scanning, and reading for detail. Okay, it's not testing for your knowledge. Now, in the academic test, generally the passages contain 2,200 to 2,750 words, which means they're quite lengthy. And it means that you have to learn to use your reading skills of skimming and scanning and so on, okay? Here are some of the question types that you'll come across in the reading component. You know, you've seen multiple choice before, obviously. It's very common. They'll give you a number of options to choose as your answer, and you're supposed to just pick the one that now fits the best. Now, I say that because in multiple choice, sometimes they put two responses that are good possibilities or very similar, and you have to decide which one of those is the better answer, okay? The next type of question you get is called an identifying question. So basically, they just want you to identify if the statements are in the passage or not in the passage or not there. So they call it, if it's just looking at basic information provided by the passage, they'll ask you if it's true according to the passage, false according to the passage, or not given. The other thing that they look for is whether you can pick out the writer's views or writer's opinions. Again, is it there? Yes. Is it not there? Then you put no. Sorry, if it's there, but it says that whatever the statement is not true, then it's no. If there is nothing in the passage to tell you if the answer is right or wrong or what the answer actually is, you must choose the option called not given. Okay, so that's often a tricky one. People often find it difficult to differentiate between false or no and a not given. But the false and the no are definitive, meaning when you read the passage, you know for sure the passage is refuting the statement that is said, whereas not given means there's nothing in the passage to prove or disprove what the question, what the answer is. Okay. Now the next one is called a matching type of question. So they have a number of kinds of matching questions. Very commonly, they will give you some kind of a summary or heading or some information and ask you to match the bits of information to the different paragraphs, which they will put as A, B, A, paragraph A, paragraph B, paragraph C, and so on, right? They will do that with headings. So they'll give you sort of headings for each paragraph, but they will mix them up and then ask you to match it to the correct paragraph. They might give you sentence endings and ask you to match it to sentence beginnings, the first half of the question, okay? First half of the answer. Now, the completion, there's a completion question, questions, in which they give you half of something, half a sentence, or they'll give you a diagram with some blanks. You're supposed to fill in the blanks, okay? They also do that with summary notes, tables, and flowcharts. They might give you some information, but they will leave some blanks. And based on that, you're supposed to complete the table. The last kind of question that you might get is something called a short answer question. And short answer in IELTS is very short. It's not a paragraph or anything. They will often, well, not often, they usually on the test, you are told how many words to write in the short answer component. They'll say in no more than 2 words or no more than 3 words. You must keep to the limit they give you, because if you write more than the number of words allowed, your answer will not be valid. So you'll get a 0 for that, even if your answer was correct. So please be mindful of how many words you're allowed to write for the short answer and don't go over the number required, okay? They're usually about 2, 3, or 4 words, that's it. Right. Okay, just a note here that multiple choice, identifying, and short answer questions are given in the same order as information in the text, meaning, you know, if it was at the beginning, then the question about that would be at the beginning and so on, okay? All right, let's try do a sample of this. So this one is just basically information, verifying information, true, false, or not given. So I'm going to read these paragraphs for you, and I want you to check out of the answers 1 to 3, which one is true, which is false, and which is not given. Okay, so just give me a moment here. So it says so what we're doing here is identifying the accuracy of the information. Now, if you look quickly at this, you can look at the keywords so that you are ready to do the reading. So if you quickly scan this, you go Aboriginal Australians, descended inhabitants of Africa, Aborigines, 80,000 years ago, genetically diverse. So it's talking about population, right? And where people come from. And the people in particular they're talking about here are Aboriginal Australians. And then they talk about, descendant ancestors and so on. Okay, so let's look here. Modern humans ventured out of Africa some 80,000 years ago. While the ancestors of Aboriginal Australians were part of this migration, recent genomic analysis reveals a rare and unexpected later development. Genomics, or the study of a population's gene structure, suggests that Aboriginal Australians arrived in a single migration to Australia at least 50,000 years ago. Despite this, however, as Aboriginal Australians adapted to different conditions in the continent over many thousands of years, a remarkable genetic diversity resulted. This means that there's a greater genetic diversity between Aboriginal people living in the east and west of Australia than there is between much more culturally diverse races like the indigenous peoples of Siberia and North America. Okay, so modern humans coming out of Africa, genomics, genomic analysis, genetic diversity. Okay, so the topic is generally about genetic diversity. And in particular, using the example of Aboriginal people, who are the original people who were living in Australia before the settlers came. Now, let's look at the questions then. The first question says, Aboriginal Australians are descended from the inhabitants of Africa. Is that true, false, or not given? So you can put it in the chat, true, false, or not given. Okay, some people are saying that the chat has been disabled, so I'm not sure about that. I'm not in control of that. Okay. All right, so most of you say true, which is, so where do we find this? Aboriginal Australians are descended from the inhabitants of Africa. You know it's in the first paragraph here, because let's have a look. It has modern humans came out of Africa. Okay, that's fine. So modern humans, while the ancestors of Aboriginal Australians were part of this migration. So this one, Aboriginal Australians were part of this migration. So the answer is true. Okay, so good. Those of you who put true. All right, let's look at number 2. Ancestors of Aborigines settled in Australia about 80,000 years ago. Is that true, false, or not given? So what do you think? True, false, or not given? Okay, let's see, there's a bit of variation in the response, but most of you are putting false. So look for similar patterns, something talking about ancestors settled in Australia, which is the second paragraph, right? So it says here that Aboriginal Australians arrived in a single migration to Australia at least 50,000 years ago. So the answer is false. Okay. So that is the answer they give. let's look at the third one. So the third one says Aboriginal Australians, or just all the boxes are getting in the way here. Aboriginal Australians are the most genetically diverse race in the world. Now, so your job here is to determine, is that a true statement or a false statement according to the passage, not according to what you believe or what you know, but what you read. So what have most of you put? Again, a range of responses, but generally it says here, greater genetic diversity between Aboriginal people, East Aboriginal people, and the West Aboriginal people. Nowhere here does it say that it is the most genetically diverse race. Okay, so be careful about words like most and more. They're not the same, right? So the answer is not given. Okay, so this type of question, yeah, it's a little bit tricky at times, but you can, by process of elimination, kind of get the answer to that, right? Okay, so that's a sampling of what the test might be like. Now, the key here is to look for synonyms, phrases that sound the same, like settled in Australia means the same as arrived in a single migration to Australia, and to look out for distractors. And we call them distractors because that's exactly what they are. They distract us from the real answer. These distractors are often used also in multiple choice questions, where they might give you two answers that look almost the same, almost exactly the same, but one of those is incorrect, obviously. Okay, so they're trying to sort of equate genetic diversity with cultural diversity, and it's quite obvious that those two are not the same. So just to reflect, yeah, someone pointed out about if you say at least 50,000 years ago, so it could be 80,000 years ago, but you don't know about the 80,000, but you do know that they say at least 50,000. So the 50,000 years ago is more verified, right? It's verified in the passage. Okay. Make sure you read the questions first and then skim the text. Underline keywords. Note the number of words allowed in your answer. And I've said that before. They will tell you, no more than 2 words, no more than 3 words, etc. Don't worry about words you don't know. Unusual words will be explained within the text. If the word isn't explained, it isn't important. Okay. Don't waste time on any one question you're having trouble with, and this is for most tests, right? If you have 20 minutes per reading passage, you have to not only read the passage in the 20 minutes, you have to answer the questions corresponding within that 20 minutes, which means you don't have time to dawdle over any particular question. You get 1 mark right for each question. There's no penalty for wrong answers. So what that means is if you really don't know the answer to a particular question, just put something down because you're not going to be penalized if you get it wrong. Okay, any questions about the reading test? Okay, so let's move on to writing. Okay, maybe someone wants to answer that question about, one of our moderators wants to answer about the pencil paper. Okay, someone's sort of beating us to the, we're just about to start the writing component. Somebody's asking how they know they're in a certain band score. And I think if you were here at the beginning, you would have heard that there is a list of criteria for the band scores, and you do have access to that in the PDF. So you can look at the back to read all the different components and where you fit in that, right? Okay, let me see here. Sorry, just I'm going backwards. Okay, so let's look at writing. Sorry, just, okay. So academic writing is 60 minutes, 2 tasks. You have one task that is shorter, it's task 1, and a longer one called task 2. In task 1, you have to respond to some numerical information presented to you, numerical or visual information presented to you in the form of a graph, table, bar chart, graph, diagram of a process, cycle, flow chart, or even a map. So there are a number of things they can post to you, but it is some kind of visual, factual information. You need to summarize the information they show you. You do not have to predict anything from that. You only need to say what is occurring in that picture or in the graph. Task 2 is the argumentative essay. Basically, they will give you a topic and ask you to agree, disagree, or what is your opinion, right? Okay, so that's task 2. You're recommended to do task 1 in no more than 20 minutes and leave 40 minutes for task 2, because task 1 has a word requirement of 150 words at minimum, but task 2 has a minimum of 250 words. So obviously you want to give yourself more time for writing the essay. Okay. So for general training, the structure is the same. You have a short task and a long task, essay writing task. Now the task 2 is very similar to the academic task 2, where they give you an arguable topic and you must write about that. The task 1 is significantly different. The task 1 in general training is for you to write a letter or semi-formal or formal letter based on some information that they give you. So you should know the conventions, basic conventions of writing a letter in order to do this task, right? Okay, let's look at how you will be scored. So if you pay attention to this, then you can try and see where your weakness might be and where you can target your practice, right? Especially if you are you're doing your test very soon, you don't have a lot of time, then you should be targeted in terms of your practice. There are 4, okay, so in IELTS, the skills are often divided into 4 skills or 4 parts. So in this case, the first one is task achievement and response. Okay, that's 25%. What is task achievement? Obviously, task achievement is, have you fulfilled what they asked you to do? Therefore, it's called task achievement. Have you met and fulfilled the, achieved the task, okay? Task response is for task 2, means how well have you responded in particular to the task? Is it relevant or irrelevant, right? Another 25% is given to coherence and cohesion, okay? So in any piece of writing, we want it to be clear and understood by others, right? Coherence and cohesion refer to the techniques of writing that you use to ensure that there's a flow in your writing from beginning to end, so that they know that, oh, this part is not definitely not the beginning of the paper, right? Or and it affects the flow of your argument. And if your argument doesn't make sense, then it means that your coherence and cohesion is not strong. So this is something that, you know, everybody should work with. So that means paragraphing, arranging your paragraphs properly, and all those kinds of things. Lexical resource refers to vocabulary, okay? Are you using top-notch vocabulary, very academic, or are you using very simple, common types of vocabulary? So that vocabulary will also be part of, you know, determining how high you are in terms of your writing score. try to use academic phrases and collocations, those of you who are doing the academic test, just so that, it shows that you have the higher level. Grammatical range and accuracy is another component. And again, they're all equal in terms of grading. Grammatical range and accuracy is exactly what it says. Your grammar in your sentences, are they right? Are you getting most of your sentences correct in terms of grammar, or are there lots of grammatical mistakes? Accuracy, okay, again, mistakes, right? This section also includes sentence structure. If you have very basic sentence structure, then you will get a lower score. So if you're using complex compound sentences, then you'll obviously get a higher mark. All right, so there are 4 all-around things that they look for. And I often ask people to say, well, which component of these do you have the most control over on test day? So what do you think? Do you have any thoughts about that? Okay, so someone says task achievement. Okay. Someone says lexical resource. Any other responses? Which one of these items is the easiest for you to do well in? Let's put it that way, on the test day. Someone says coherence, task. Okay, quite a range of responses. I see task achievement, coherence, cohesion coming out a lot, and lots of task achievement. Okay. The answer is, well, according to me, in my experience, that task achievement and response is something well within your control during test day, because you get to see the question, and if you analyze the question properly and you have responded well to the specific question, and you did not give irrelevant detail or you did not go off topic, then you will achieve well in task achievement. Of course, in task achievement, you also must have good examples when, you have to have the correct vocabulary and all those things, right? But generally speaking, on that day, you read the question properly, you answer to the question, you should do all right in task achievement or task response. Okay, but that's only 1/4 of the entire scoring. If you are good in one and poor in the rest of the sections, then your score is going to be very low. If you score well in 2 components, but you don't score well in the other 2, maybe it will balance out and you will get a, fair score, but not the best, right? So oftentimes you have to make sure you have at least 3 of these components well practiced, and that you are confident of what you can do. Grammatical range and accuracy, I find, would be difficult for most people, because even for native speakers, changing and correcting your writing mistakes is very difficult. You should, in this case, probably want to hire someone to help you to check your writing, a tutor or someone who can point out your mistakes, and then you have to rewrite and to correct your mistakes. So grammatical range and accuracy is time-consuming to fix. Lexical resource is also hard to fix overnight, or it's because you must have a lot of experience reading different topics. And you can't just increase your vocabulary overnight. That's not something you can do. You need to spend time, you need to really practice and remember phrases, read books in English, and so on, right? Now, coherence and cohesion can be something easy to score on as well, especially for writing. If you know the right academic phrases to put into the paragraphs and the sentences, like what we call linking words, if you're able to put those in, you can guarantee at least 6.5 or something like that, if everything else works out. Okay. But I will tell people that it is not a formula. This is as close to a formula as you get, is these 4 things. but there's nothing you can do to say, oh, well, you know, I'm going to confidently get X percentage or something. Okay. So let's have a look at some examples from the academic component. Summarize in your own words information presented in a graph, table, chart, or diagram. This is putting visuals into words. Now, the instructions will say write at least 150 words. They might not say 20 minutes, but we say 20 minutes because you have an essay to write after this. So don't spend 40 minutes on this and then later go, oh no, I don't have enough time to write a 5-paragraph essay, right? So stick to between, 150, 200 words for the first task. Always write more than the 150 words because they will count the number of words and sometimes people fall short, which is not what you want. Because if you fall short of the requirement of 150 words, you will be penalized anywhere from 1 band score to 2 band scores or more, depending on how much you wrote, how much underlength your paper is. All right, let's have a look at the one example of a task, academic, can't say the word, academic task 1 question. So you will often get images like this with numbers and so on, but they often give you more than one thing to look at. For the purpose of comparison, right? Comparison and contrast. So they want you to say what is happening in one graph, is it related to what's happening in the other graph? Okay. Excuse me. Now you should only describe what you see. So you do not need to make any predictions or explanations as to why a certain trend exists, right? But from what you can see, anytime you look at a chart, the first thing we do is look at the trend. So immediately when you look at the bar chart here, you see a trend that is increasing from 1985 to 1995. There has been a steady increase. There's only been sort of a little spike here in the middle and a bit of a drop, but generally speaking, the number in millions of Japanese tourists traveling abroad has increased over 10 years from 85 to 95. Now note here, it says number in millions. Pay attention to the labels on your charts and graphs because it gives you more detail. You do not want to write, spend time writing out this answer and then you don't put 6 million, you put 6 or something. So 6 as a number of people is different from 6 million people. So make sure you get that correct. You see that the trend here is increasing. So you look at the other graph. So if you have 2, it's a simple comparison contrast. At times they have 3 things. They will give you maybe bar graph, line graph, and a circle graph, like a pie graph chart. And then you have to compare them. But in this case, you can see that both of them have an upward trend with some differences, right? But in general, it shows that in 10 years, Australia's share of Japan's tourist market also went up. Now, you do not need to say why they both went up, okay? Because that's not what the question says, summarize the information. It doesn't ask you to explain or, explain in detail, okay? So what should you do if you have, any task 1 question of academic? Write an introduction, which says who, what, when, where. Highlight key, so give context, give people context. Highlight key features with figures and then write an overview, okay? So write an introduction, highlight key features with figures. Now, this is very important, these 2. Highlight key figures with features and write an overview. Basically, an overview is the overall trend that you see. So if you see, for example, that both have increased in the 10-year period, that is your overview, okay? Key features are more details, but if you say the details, you also have to give the numerical details, right? So for example, if you say that, the trend from 85 to 95 has increased, increased by how much, right? So we see here that almost 3 times more. So over 10 years, there have been 3 times more numbers in terms of millions of Japanese tourists traveling abroad. So here is a sample paragraph from there. The charts show the number of Japanese tourists traveling abroad between 1985 and 1995 and Australia's share of the Japanese tourist market. Now, whatever you do, you cannot copy from the words in the question. You cannot have the same sentence structure. So you basically have to summarize and rewrite that first part. So in this case, they put the chart and graph compare the number of Japanese who spent their holidays overseas from 1985 to 1995, with a proportion of them who visited Australia. Okay, so that's kind of the beginning. Now, then you move into, so you need paragraphs. You need an introductory paragraph, and then you have to find a couple of paragraphs. How are you going to, populate the paragraphs? So in this case, the first paragraph is about the first graph. Second paragraph will be about the second graph or chart. So here it says in 1985, only about 5 million Japanese tourists traveled abroad, after which the number increased steadily. So this is an attempt at an overview, meaning from beginning to end, what's happening in the trend. Then it says there are, apart from a slight drop the following year, the upward trend continued until the end of the period when numbers reached over 15 million. Okay, now another thing to note. So you're describing the bar graph here. You have to give numbers, okay? There's no avoiding it. If you have any graphs or charts that have numerical information, you have to write it in. But if it is a lot of detail, then you might not have to include everything. You just want to include the main parts. Oops, sorry. What happened there? Can you see my screen now? Sorry, I think I clicked it off or something too. So that paragraph refers to the first graph. And then the second one says, while Australia was the destination for under 2% of Japanese tourists in 1985, this percentage had risen to over 6% by 1994. So there's some description here of what do you call it? The percentage had risen to over, so it's kind of like the trend here, but they break it down into its parts. There was a slight fall in 1990, 4.5 to 4%. So whenever you say there's a drop or there's an increase, you must give numbers, okay? After reaching its 1994 peak, the percentage declined marginally to 6% in 1995. Okay, so that's 2. Okay, just an aside, what is the highest score for task achievement you can get if you don't include figures to highlight the key features? So let's say you summarize everything, but you don't have numbers. What happens to you? What is the highest for task achievement? Any guesses? No, number of paragraphs would depend on the question, but it's generally the minimum. 3 paragraphs is the minimum for task 1. Sometimes people write 4 paragraphs. It depends on how much you have to describe, right? But you would not have 6 paragraphs because this is 150 words. So you should not be having very, very short paragraphs and having many paragraphs. So no, 6 paragraphs is not recommended, not for task 1. Basically, if you do not give numbers and percentages, then you will achieve only a band 5 for task achievement. Okay, so that's important when you do task 1 to put the details in. All right, let's go to the conclusion here. So the what's essential is introduction, then you have your body, then your body can be 1 or 2 paragraphs, and your conclusion. So this is a conclusion. It says overall. So that's how you know it's a conclusion, because it has the word overall, or as we can see, something like that. Despite the relatively small proportion of Japanese tourists coming to Australia, the Japanese tourist market corresponded closely with the growth in Japanese tourism overseas generally, with the trebling of both in the 10-year period. So this whole conclusion gives the overview, the trends, and then it summarizes and says the proportion of Japanese tourists coming to Australia corresponded closely with the growth of Japanese tourism overseas. That would appear so, right? Within the 10-year period. Nowhere here does it have to explain why this is the case or how connected it is, right? Okay. Right here. What is the highest score for task achievement if you don't include an overview in your answer? So that's like an essay without a thesis statement, right? Band 5, if you do not say what the overall trend in across, you know, all the graphs or all the diagrams, if you don't have that, you will only get a 5. That's the highest you can get for task achievement. Okay. You can have a 5 in task achievement, but maybe an 8 in the other components, right? But what the 5 will do is pull down your other scores. So please do not tell yourself that you can get 5s or even 6s, right? Because, okay. So for task 1, academic, make sure you've written at least 150 words, introduction, conclusion. So, have you included an overview of the information? This is crucial. Have you selected the most important information? So as I told you, sometimes you will get lots of numbers. You have to pick out the numbers that are interesting or that cause some kind of change. Support your points with figures and examples. Okay. Have you made effective comparisons? The key is comparing. Even within, if you only have one table, you can compare different bits of the information, right, inside the table. Have you used linking words to connect your points? So words like therefore, although, however, right? Those are common academic words that you can use, right? Have you organized key points into paragraphs? That's important. Paragraphing is important. If you just write one whole chunk and it's not in paragraphing, you would also lose marks for that. Okay. Somebody asked about a conclusion. It's not that you don't need a conclusion, but you definitely need the overview part. So make sure you've got the overview. Okay. So, all right, so you've got all these. Also check for mistakes in spelling and grammar. Give yourself time, maybe the last minute or the last 2 minutes, to correct your mistakes in terms of grammar and spelling. Oh, 8:30. So, questions? Let's see here. Oops, where are we? Chat. Don't. Okay, common mistakes to avoid. Not supporting description with figures. This is very common for academic task 1. A lot of people will say, oh, this one increased, this one decreased, you know, this changed, but nowhere does it say by how much. If you want to say something increased, you have to say increase from what figure to what figure, right? Trying to interpret the data. So some people might say, well, you know, a lot of tourists like to go to Australia because Australia is a really beautiful place. The question And task 1 question does not require you to make those kinds of observations, personal observations or anything like that. Okay. You do not have to describe every single detail. As I said, if they give you, 10 years of data, and then you can, well, in the first year, in the second year, and by the time you've done that, you've probably written more than the required number of words, right? Or too much. You will waste time doing that. Not writing an overview of the information. Again, as I said, you must have this overview. If you don't have it, your score will be capped at a low band score. Okay. All right. Yeah, the overview can be written in the beginning of in your first paragraph or your last paragraph. It's up to you, but it has to be there. Okay. All right, so let's go to, oh, just to mention, there is a kind of question which is less common, but they do give you this kind. It's called a process question. They will give you a series of diagrams at different stages showing the process of something, like how to make paper, something like that. And you have to describe the process. So that has been, coming up. Okay. Excuse me. An overview is like a thesis statement. Okay. So, for example, if you have a process question, you might see this, right? Brick manufacturing. Yeah, where's this go? You should spend at least 20 minutes on this, at about 20 minutes, not at least, okay, no more than 20 minutes. The diagram below shows the process by which bricks are manufactured in the building industry. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features, and they'll often use this word main features, meaning you select the important details to report. Make comparisons where relevant. Okay. So here you see, for example, first there's digger digging the clay and then being put on a roller or metal grid. So in the process one, they do give you some vocabulary, but you're required to use all the vocabulary in your writing. But the key with this process is to divide the process into various stages. So for example, this is the first stage is these 3 things: the collection, rolling, filtration, and the molding. And then you have another stage, which is drying and cooling. And then the last stage, the third stage, is packaging and delivery. So that's how you would divide up a question like that. Okay. So here's an example of a response to that. So the diagram outlines how bricks are manufactured, from the extraction of raw clay to the eventual delivery of finished bricks to the building industry. The process involves clearly defined steps. Overall, the brick making process comprises 7 steps. These steps involve different processes, namely refining and forming the raw clay, drying the clay, and firing bricks in ovens. Okay, I would divide the steps into stages as well. So 3 stages. Okay. Okay. Are there any questions about the academic writing? I mean, we can discuss it also in the Q&A at the end, and so that we can move on. If you do not know much about the content or the topic, that is unfortunate, because whatever you write about something, it must be relevant. So they really look at that. For task achievement, you must write relevant things, relevant ideas, right? So hopefully you won't get anything that you won't know about, but generally speaking, because the topics are so general, it will be topics that you have probably come across in school or you know, from day to day, you have discussions with people, right? Okay. So let's look at writing for general training, the task 1. So task 1 for general training is always a letter. The question is it a formal letter or informal letter? You, as the writer, have to decide whether to use formal language or informal language, okay? Most of you have studied letter writing, right, at some point in your schooling. So remember the etiquette, right? So same principles. You have 20 minutes to write the letter. The letter, you have to write at least 150 words. And you just begin, dear sir or madam. You don't have to write anything else. You don't have to put the address and all that at the beginning. Now, one thing about this, writing this letter, is they make your life easier in the sense that they give you the general topic. So you see here, the first part says there have been some problems with public transport in your area recently. That's the general topic. Then the general instruction, write a letter to the manager of the public transport company. Okay, so it tells you what the purpose, okay? Then it gives you 3 very particular details you have to include. Now, this is really important for you to remember. You must cover all the points mentioned here in the bullet points. If you do not mention them, you will get a low score. Okay. So the main thing, so in your first paragraph, state the purpose of your letter. Why are you writing to these people? Make sure you cover all your bullet points fully and maintain an appropriate tone throughout. Meaning, so for letter writing, okay, tone is very important. And we all know that it is hard to, you know, maintain the appropriate tone in writing sometimes. Sometimes we make mistakes in writing emails and so on, right? So tone is how people will receive or perceive what you have written, right? So you want to make sure it's polite all the way through and that you are not offending anybody, okay? So here's an example of stating your purpose and writing the beginning. Dear sir or madam, I am a resident of Newtown and I'm writing to draw your attention to recent problems with the public transport in our area, okay? That's a simple opening. Just say who you are and why you're writing. Briefly, the roadworks along Hill Road have led to long delays in bus services. Furthermore, the new weekend bus timetable has dramatically reduced the frequency of buses on Saturday mornings. So you state the problem. Then you are answering the question that says, you know, how does it affect people, right? What was the question? Describe the problems, explain how these problems are affecting the public, and suggest changes that could be made. So here is the problem. And the middle paragraph is about how it affects people in a negative way, drastic downturn in retail trade. Since suggestion is here in the next paragraph, may I suggest that buses be rerouted? And then a paragraph that says, I'm looking forward to receiving a response to my suggestions. So this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraph essay, but there are 2 paragraphs that are very short. But there's an introduction, a conclusion, and then the body paragraphs. And the body paragraphs follow what is required in the question. What's the highest score if you don't cover the bullet points? The highest you can get is a band 4. And band 4 is a bad score, okay? Another thing to remember is to check the questions for number of items. So for example, is it one problem or many problems with the S? If it says problems, it means you have to give more than one problem, right? If it states give a problem, then you know you only have to, give one. What is the highest score for task achievement? If you don't cover all the bullet points, as we said, it's at band 4. Appropriate tone can be maintained by using polite phrasing and so on. So even if you're writing to a friend, and writing something informal, you still want to maintain some politeness, right? So, dear sir, madam, I write to draw your attention to, or you can say, furthermore, there's a high level of public concern about, may I suggest, or I would recommend. Okay, so we often use the conditional would to show politeness. Okay, here's a response given that's a band 6.5, sorry. This letter has a clear purpose. All the content is relevant. So relevancy is pretty important. The bullet points are well covered, but could be more fully extended. So you also have to write a lot, as much detail as you can. I know it's hard, but these letters, for whatever purpose, you should give more detail. What they want to see is detail in the vocabulary, complex vocabulary, right? So if you don't give detail, it shows that you are a limited language user, right? Because you're not giving detail because you don't have the language, okay? So if you want to sound good, you make it sound interesting and detailed with good, concrete descriptions, okay? Here's one about an overseas friend who wants to visit your country on holiday. Write a letter to your friend. In your letter, recommend the best time of year to go, describe the types of accommodation, and say what you would like to show your friend in your country. So you will see a pattern in these kinds of questions, right? Okay, so your response, dear Andrew, I was pleased to hear that you're going to visit Brisbane. So I'm writing to you to give some information to think about before you come. Okay, so each of these sort of paragraphs are answering the bullet points, right? It's still fairly polite. Okay, so do not use slang words, even in the informal letter, right? You still want to show that there's some level of professionalism. Okay. So make sure you analyze the task to look for more than one element in any bullet point. Check for plural forms in the bullet points, like describe the problems versus the problem. State the purpose of your letter in the first paragraph. Letters all need paragraphs. Okay, so your paragraphs are the key to coherence, right? Coherence and cohesion. Politely round off and look to the future. So at the end of a letter, you always say, well, I look forward to seeing you, or look forward to receiving this item from you, right? We call that politely rounding off. We do that in conversations, right? Write in a style that is suitable, so formal or informal. Write your whole letter in the same style. So do not mix formality and informality, because then it shows that you don't really understand the difference between the two of those. Avoid using the same words as those given in the instructions. So that's important, because when they grade the papers, and they will count the number of words that you copied from the instruction, and those words will be subtracted from your overall word count, which will bring your word count lower. Start the letter as shown in the question, dear sir or dear madam. Do not include your address at the beginning, because that's not relevant. End the letter in a polite way. So yours faithfully, yours truthfully, yours sincerely, sorry, yours faithfully. Okay, so that is task 1 for both academic and general training. Okay. Let's move on to task 2. In task 2, both academic and general training task 2 are very similar. Okay. Basically, you will be given some kind of topic that is debatable, meaning that there are two sides to the issue. You'll be asked to give an opinion or to discuss something, or you will ask given a multi-part question. Depending on the task, you may need to provide general factual information, provide a solution, justify an opinion, or evaluate evidence and ideas. Okay. So this is task 2. So task 2 is a full essay. So let's start with an opinion essay. So this is an example of what the opinion essay might look like. Again, you have 40 minutes to do this. You have to write at least 250 words. Just remember that in an essay, you must give reasons for your answer. You have to back it up with some evidence. Now, you are not required to memorize facts about something to spit it out here, but you should, from your own knowledge and experience, you should be able to give some examples, right? The key is to use good descriptive words. Okay, so it's to show the strength of your vocabulary. So the question is, here, just let me, So the question is, write about the following topic. Children who are brought up in families that do not have large amounts of money are better prepared to deal with the problems of adult life than children brought up by wealthy parents. Now that's thought-provoking, but they say, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this opinion? Okay. So here is a sample, which is a band 8. Okay, this person wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 6 paragraphs. So that should be about the average, right? The topic is well addressed. The position is clear throughout. Main ideas are presented and well supported. So that's the key, is if you say you agree or disagree with something, you must back it up. You say, with your experience, of course, you're not required to give, quote statistics that you memorize or anything like that. That's not, but you at least have to say that, well, if you say that, children with wealthy parents often do not understand, money or how to use money as much as, well, why do you think that? Then you give something, maybe someone who has struggled with this, right? So you can give that as an example. Now, the next kind of question, so you could have the same topic. So in this case, we'll talk about the topic of shopping, okay? Shopping can either be a question of, well, do you think shopping is a good free time activity? Yes or no, you could do that, right? But in this case, they ask you to discuss these views. Some people believe the increasing popularity of shopping as a leisure activity is a positive trend. Others believe it is harmful to individuals. Discuss both these views and give your opinion. That is important, right? So this is the topic. People believe that, blah, blah, blah. Others believe. So they give you the two arguments, right? Discuss both these views and give your opinion. So how could you answer this? Easy. It says discuss both these views, meaning describe the view that people believe it is a positive trend, and describe the view that people believe that shopping is a harmful trend. And then another paragraph giving your opinion. That's 3 paragraphs right there. And then your introduction, conclusion, altogether, that's 5 paragraphs. Okay. So you can make a quick outline for yourself like that before you start writing, because once you put it in point form, at least it gives you a guideline as to how you want to arrange your paragraphs. Okay. Another kind of question, this one's a little more complex. So those of you doing academic, pay attention, right? Because Yeah, someone asked about if you did not finish your essay, you ran out of time. The band score you'll get is will really depend on how much of the essay, how much of your argument did you get across. I mean, if you weren't even able to express or respond to all the points mentioned, then you will get a lower score, right? You have to give an opinion. It's not good to be indecisive or undecided over something. It's best to have something to argue about, right? Even if it's not, you know, if it's just hypothetical or you don't really believe that, but and for the sake of argument, you want to put in another point of view. Okay. All right, this part, multi-part question essay. Shopping is becoming more and more popular as a leisure activity. However, some people feel that this has both positive and negative effects. Why is shopping so popular? What effects does its increase in popularity have on individuals and society? Technically, how many parts is this question? Or does... So this question has almost 3 parts because one says, why is shopping popular? So you have to explain why you think that is. What effects does its increase in popularity have on 1, individuals, and 2, society? So this is 2 parts in one question. What effects does more shopping have on people as individuals and people as the society as a whole? Okay, so that's 3 paragraphs right there, answering each one. Okay. Yes, so someone put down why, and then good effects and the bad effects, right? But that's not, okay, that outline is not answering the question. The question is, you have, so it says here, it has positive and negative effects. But your answer should be, why is shopping popular? Shopping is popular because, what's going to happen? And shopping has a negative effect on individuals, has both positive and negative effect on individuals and society. So in individuals, for example, it can be enjoyable pastime. On the other hand, it could also cause debt, people to go into debt. In general, that means that in society, the impact of shopping in society is not good. And those of you doing academic, you want to bring up issues like consumerism over sort of, you know, people buying more things than they actually need. So while it generates the economy, it's also causing large amounts of waste. So you could go into the social aspects, or you have to go into the social aspects as well. Okay, here's an example. This one is a band 8 response, and you see how long, how extensive it is. So basically, to reach a band 8 or 7 or 8, you need to give really good examples. Okay, specific examples, right? So let's see, where are we? So you can read that to find out what that is. Let's look at what you need to do overall. Allocate your time properly. I'm not pronouncing things well tonight. Allocate your times properly. Task 2 is worth as much as task 1. So please do task 1 first, but do not spend more than 20 minutes. Then you get to task 2 and spend all your time on that, okay? Decide on your position, express your views clearly, and provide support. I suggest at this stage to write a brief outline for yourself before you start writing, because if you have a plan, you can keep to the number of words, and you won't go out of, now, writing over 250 words might be easy, but a lot of people, if you write too much, you could waste time and not get to your conclusion, and then the time is up already. So you have to balance that. The key is to practice time test. Do the writing test component, give yourself a whole hour, lock yourself in a room, and don't let anyone come in while you're doing it for 60 minutes. See if you can complete both tasks within the 60-minute period, and you can use your phone to time yourself and so on, okay? Practicing time test is the only way to know how you will cope with it within the time period. Organize your ideas into paragraphs, each with a clear focus. This is important, your paragraphing, because that is what gives people your argument and your structure, and you lead people systematically from point to point. Okay? Use a range of vocabulary and grammatical structures, right? Analyze the task and write relevant content. Relevant, okay? So whatever examples you give or whatever points you make has to be related to the question. And do not be misled, because previously, if you answer about the topic, but you did not answer to the questions, then it's not relevant, right? Use a variety of linking words and sequencing words. Do not write in note form. Use headings, bullet points, or numbered lists. This is an essay, not a report. You cannot use headings, bullet points, or numbered lists, right? Like 1. So you say something like, there are 3 reasons for this. 1, and then you put number 1, then number 2 point, and number 3. You cannot do that, okay? Everything must be in nice sentences and paragraphs, okay? So hopefully that's understood by everybody. Check your work carefully, know your mistakes, look out for those, okay? All right, any questions about task 2 essays? If there's nothing specific, then let's move on to speaking, right? Speaking is the fun part, right? Speaking, most of you who've been living and working in Singapore or in other English speaking places, you're probably quite comfortable with speaking in English. So there's just a few things that you need to know about the speaking test though. So let's have a look. Someone asked if you need to do task 1 first and task 2. You can do it in whatever order you wish, but the problem is if you spend a lot of time on your task 2 and you do that first, you might run out of time to do task 1. So that's always a risk you take, right? All right, speaking is 11 to 14 minutes, 3 parts to it. Okay, so the speaking will go very quickly. It says 11 to 14 minutes, but it will not feel like 11 to 14 minutes to you because you'll come in and then you'll walk out of the room. Let's look at the 4 components of speaking that you are graded on, right? You have fluency and coherence, which is 25%. Right? Fluency, coherence is, can you speak without pausing after every word? Can you speak smoothly and comfortably, effortlessly, as we say, okay? Excuse me. What is your vocabulary, lexical resource? How high level is the vocabulary that you use? Are you using very simple everyday words, or are you using more academic words, or are you using very sophisticated phrases, right? Grammatical range and accuracy, also 25%. And lastly, pronunciation, okay? Now, which one of these do you think you could improve in a short time? Any thoughts? In a short time, which one do you think you can improve on? Okay, so here's some input. Pronunciation, fluency, lexical, oh, there's a range here. A lot of you said pronunciation. Actually, I think the thing you can fix the most is lexical resource and fluency and coherence. Just have to speak more and with more people. Lexical resource, just read more English books, watch more programs in English, you can definitely pick up vocabulary from doing that. I would say that pronunciation is actually not the easiest thing to change because, yes, speaking, so those of you who are Singaporean or have lived here for a long time, speaking Singlish can reduce your pronunciation or can reduce your score in terms of, because that depends on if the person understands you well. But if it's too colloquial, it's going to interfere with pronunciation because Singlish pronunciation has a staccato sound. It's not English sounding, okay? And it will impact your fluency and coherence, okay? And of course, if you use Singlish words, your lexical resource would be all wrong, right? So do not use vernacular. In tests like these, they're testing for standard English, not for vernacular English. Of course, we know there are many different kinds of Englishes in the world. So for linguists, there are many different kinds. So Singlish has now sort of been, identified as a kind of English, right? Pronunciation is the hardest because if we've been speaking English in our own way for the longest time, it's very hard to fix it. You can go for accent training, listen to tapes and videos or watch videos on YouTube on how to change your pronunciation. And nowadays you have the dictionaries, right? You can go to the online dictionary and you can click on how a word sounds and just practice that. Okay, so that can help you pronounce individual words. But to understand things like phrasing and whole sentences, you need to listen to programs in English and maybe try to mimic what people say. And that would be a way to practice your pronunciation. Just a short anecdote. I was speaking to someone who in the UK, I was recently in the UK in London, and I spoke to someone who's an experienced teacher, and she said that they went to China on a visit. Somehow there was a group visit. They went over there and someone said, oh, we want you to meet this interesting person. So this lady runs a cafe or something, and all the expat people like to go there to enjoy, the service in this cafe. So she said they all went there and it was a small town in China somewhere. And she said the host or the owner came out and spoke to them, and she spoke in perfect Queen's English. So they asked her, said, how did you learn your English? Because you speak in the Queen's English, and it's so good, it's flawless. And she said, literally, she just watched programs or something, BBC, right? She just learned from that. And they said, have you been to the UK? And she said, no, never. And so that just proves that pronunciation can be learned without you ever going to that particular country. So now we have YouTube and all kinds of things, right? So you can increase, but that takes time and effort and talent. To some extent, pronunciation is, some people just pick it up faster than other people, right? So grammatical range and accuracy is probably, sorry, Lilith says that your accent isn't being scored, but definitely if your accent impacts the way you pronounce something and your pronunciation is not understood by the examiner, then yes, it will interfere with, it will be part of the pronunciation score, okay? But as I said, most of you who live and work in an English speaking context don't have a problem with the pronunciation generally. You might mispronounce a number of words, but again, you can fix that on your own. The hard one is grammatical range and accuracy, for sure. If you've been sort of saying something in the wrong way, the wrong phrases and so on, it's very hard to fix this one. And that one requires practice with English speakers and so on. Okay, anyway, that's going on too long. All right, let's listen to the part 3. So this is a part 3. So part 1 is just questions about, who you are, where you live, or where you study, where you work, that kind of thing. Part 2, you are given a topic and you have to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. You are allowed to kind of 1 minute to prepare for giving your answer. So that's part 2. Part 3 is an extension of the part 2 in terms of the fact that it's the same topic, but part 3 is very much more like a conversation between 2 people, right? Discussion. So the more fluent you are, the better you will be at part 3. If you treat it as a question, answer, like ping pong, then that's not really great. You want it to be very comfortable, and you want to be more giving your opinion about things and being comfortable giving your opinion. So let's get started. I hope that you can hear this. I may have to stop sharing and reshare for this to work. So let me know.
So we've been talking about a well-known person that you like or admire.
So can everyone hear that? Can you see and hear that? Yes, low volume. Okay, let me see if I can fix it. I'm not sure how to fix that because the volume on this is at maximum on the original. Okay.
So we've been talking about a well-known person that you like or admire. I'd like to discuss with you 1 or 2 more general questions related to this.
Sorry. The video is delayed. That I can't. That one is. There's nothing I can do.
Consider first of all,
Sorry.
Being in the public eye. Yeah. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of being famous?
The advantages are that first, that you will get really rich, and the fame actually helps you because you don't have to pay for a lot of stuff. They will give you free dresses and free stays in the hotels, free meals, free everything. So actually you're saving money plus the money that you're earning. And the disadvantages are that being a public eye, you lose your privacy. You will always be in the eye of the paparazzi and people, and if someone recognizes you, they will take a picture of you, and that's the end of the relaxed evening. So I think that it will be a really big disadvantage.
Do you think if a celebrity accepts those endorsements, do you think they lose their honesty?
I don't think that they will lose their honesty, but maybe it will change them. They will have to accept the environment that they are living into right now. So if they get famous and they're not selling their soul to the devil, I don't think that they're that bad. I think that it's just human, and if they like it, well, better for them.
Can you talk about how the media reports on famous people in your country?
The reports of the media in my country, they are like having have serious news and have entertainment. So the reports are often, but not that often. They don't have like big news if Shakira gets married or not. It's like a small news, but it gets bigger with the people, not with the media, because people start to talking about the news, not the media makes it big.
Do you think more time should be spent on current events and political news?
I think so, but I think that we also need a rest from the serious stuff, and we also need entertainment. So it will be a balance, because only bad news is not good for anybody. So I think that half and half it will be better.
Why do ordinary people find the lives of celebrities so interesting?
I think because if they see somebody that's successful and rich failed or getting dumped or in jail, I think that we feel better about ourselves, because we think, okay, we might not be rich, but we are better than them. So I think that's why we like it so much, to see that kind of news.
So you think most people want to see that celebrity fail?
Maybe, or maybe it depends. If you don't like anybody, you will like them fail. But if you really support one person, you will like them to be like really successful.
Let's talk about celebrity culture. How does the media use famous people in advertising?
In a lot of ways, because if people follows one person, for example, Justin Bieber right now in the Super Bowl, the media will use it and publicists will use him as long as it takes, because if he's famous, the money return will be really high.
Do you think people want to buy a product because the celebrity endorses them?
It depends on the target, but if it's a smart target, it won't be happen like this. But if it's like a child or teenagers, they will follow anything if their leaders does it.
You mentioned Justin Bieber. Are there any negative effects of young people becoming famous?
Maybe not for the people that follows the famous people, but I think that it will be really bad for that poor guy. It's being famous at that young age, you don't know what is good and what is bad, and they will always turn bad.
Thank you very much. This is the end of the speaking test.
Okay, so let's look at some of the comments about why Alexandra is a band 7. Fluency and coherence. So Alexandra is pretty fluent. And the responses she gives are what we call appropriate and extended, meaning she's given enough details and examples, right? She uses a good range of markers like first, actually, I think so, for example, in a lot of ways. She did have some hesitation when she was trying to clarify her ideas. So she's not an 8, for example. Lexical resource was her main strength. She had a wide range of vocabulary. She was able to use common idiomatic and colloquial language, like lose your privacy, selling their soul to the devil, getting dumped, right? Selling your soul to the devil is like, being so desperate that you'll do anything to accomplish something, right? Getting dumped is like when your boyfriend or girlfriend leaves you, right? So grammatical range and accuracy, she had some good complex structures. She used them flexibly. Many of her sentences were error-free, but she had a few errors with articles, prepositions, subject-verb agreement, etc. So having grammatical errors isn't the biggest problem. I mean, it's the fluency. If you have a lot of grammatical problems and you keep self-correcting, and the self-correction prevents you from being fluent, then you will get a low score for both grammatical range and fluency and coherence, right? In her case, her errors, like she just kept going. She didn't try to, stop and fix them, and it didn't interfere too much with her speech. Her pronunciation was the same. It was clear, easy to follow. Stress and intonation were used well. Only occasionally did she have mispronunciation, like Zhang for young, okay? So you can go and look at the descriptors in the PDF that you have. At the end, there's the criteria for speaking, and look at where you think you stand, or ask someone to listen to you and then tell, see if they can tell what you can do and what you can't do, right? The key is if you can maintain fluency of speech and not get flustered when you make mistakes or whatever, then you have a higher likelihood of having a better score in the fluency coherence. Even though okay, my grammatical range isn't great, okay? But if your fluency, your vocabulary is good, and your pronunciation is good, so 3 of those things is good, but grammatical range is not as good, you can still get away with a better score, right? Because it's all equal, right? Everything's evened out. But of course, if your grammatical range and accuracy is really poor and you have poor pronunciation and you often self-correcting, then that your fluency will be low as well. So, it works out like that. All right, what should you do? Listen, read, and think in English before the test. Highly recommended, to do that all the time. Talk at a steady rate. Do not talk too fast or too slow. So that's a key thing. English is not a super fast language. So for clarity, you should go a little slower if you have a tendency to speak fast, okay? If you go too slow, it might indicate to the examiner that you don't know your vocabulary. So that's why you're kind of trying to buy time by going slowly. So do not go slowly. Use the preparation time for part 2 to make your notes. So but jot down single words or just keywords. Do not try and write out full sentences, right? Because 1 minute is very short. Use natural fillers like, now let me think, but do not go, oh, how do you say this? Because it indicates you don't know something, right? Don't sound flat, use stress and intonation. Don't worry about grammar mistakes, just move on. Give more details about each of the points that you make. Explain your answers by giving reasons for what you say. So if you say, well, I think, being a celebrity is not very good. Well, because you get too much attention from the fans, and it could be negative attention. There could be stalkers and your life could be in danger, that kind of stuff. Then give an example. Say, for example, look at, who was it? There was a famous star from South America, Latin America, and she was killed by a fan, stabbed to death or something. Then that happened to a movie star as well, TV star, who was stabbed near her house, outside her house. Weigh up both sides of a question and give examples to support them. So in the case of Alexandra, she actually gave example of Justin Bieber and Shakira, kind of dated examples, but she did give examples with names. She said, she could name some celebrities. So that's something else you should do. If you can think of a famous person, name them. If you're talking about, I don't know, cars or something, then be able to name, a type of car or something. So the more specific you can be, it will show that you have better vocabulary. Rehearse, work, study where you live questions, but sound natural. Give your opinion, in my view, as far as I'm concerned, generally speaking, so those kind of phrases are important. Read and know a variety of topics to talk about: education, health, fitness, travel, transport, leisure, communication. So these are the most common topics, but there are other topics like, oh, sorry, can you hear that? No, a bit noisy, sorry. Plants, what do you call it? The environment, things like that, okay? All right, the last part, we come to the last part, listening. So let's go to listening. Just a quick, listening is 30 minutes, 4 sections, 40 questions. Okay, it's the same for both academic and general training. So in IELTS test, the IELTS test, you'll hear the recording only once. Okay, you will listen to, there are 4 parts. The first one is a conversation in an everyday social situation, right? So that would be the simplest one, right? At least between at least 2 people, maybe even 3 people, about an everyday thing. It could be people talking at a store or in a school. To a talk in an everyday situation. Now, a talk here refers to just one person giving information to other people, right? So it could be a tour guide giving a mini lecture. It could be a salesperson telling about a product, something like that. Number 3 is a conversation in an educational or training setting. Okay, so this is usually on a college campus, maybe students talking to each other or students consulting with a lecturer, that kind of thing. Number 4 is a lecture or talk on a topic of general or educational interest. And basically it will be an excerpt of a lecture, a university lecture. So number 4 will be the most difficult one because it's the longest one and it will have more like a higher level of content. Okay, so it goes from very easy in 1 and then a bit harder and then a bit more difficult and then the most difficult is number 4. Transfer answers to answer sheet for paper-based IELTS. You will, in the paper-based, you get to put the answers on the question sheet and then transfer them later. Okay, in the computer-based, you just type your answer right in. The problem with the transferring one is sometimes people transfer incorrectly. So when you transfer, you have to be really, really careful that you transfer the correct letter or the correct answer to the correct number, corresponding number of the question. Okay, because people have, you know, lost out on that before. Okay. This is a practice test that we're going to do right now. So those of you who can stick around for this, please do. So we're just going to do a few. I mean, we're not going to do a lot. Questions 1 to 8. It is obviously about the topic of theater, Royal Plymouth, and this is a booking form. So you will often, the questions they give you is in the form of a form. A bit noisy. So, okay. So I'm going to play this for you. So, okay, before you start, look at the instructions. Complete the form below. Write one word and or a number. Okay. If someone has a question. Okay. Someone asked if you can ask examiner questions. No, not for speaking. You are not allowed to ask the examiner to, you know, tell you the meaning of a word or something. No, that's not. Okay. So, all right, I'm going to go to the next slide. Now, you have this in your booklet. If you don't have the booklet, just write the numbers 1 to 8 in your phone or with a pencil on a piece of paper, and then just write in the answer that you think belongs there, okay? All right, so here we go.
Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hello, Theatre Royal Plymouth?
Oh, hello. I'd like to make a booking, please.
Yes. What is it you want to see?
The Imposter.
Right. And which day did you want to come?
Friday the 25th.
Just a moment and I'll check availability on the computer. Oh, sorry, we're fully booked for that performance.
Oh dear. What about the following day then?
The 26th? Yes, that's okay. We've got 2 performances on that day. One at 3:30 and one at 7. Which would you prefer?
Oh, the later one, please.
How many people?
Well, there are 4 of us.
Are there any concessions? Any children?
Oh, I'm not sure. My daughters are 15 and 12. Do they get concessions?
Only the 12-year-old, I'm afraid. So that's 1 child and 3 adults. Any idea where you'd like to sit? Stalls or circle? Tickets for the stalls are a bit more expensive. £12 for adults and £8.50 for children. The circle costs £10.50 and £6.50.
Do you get a good view from the circle?
Oh, yes. And in fact, we've got some seats left at the front if you'd like those.
Right. We'll go for those then.
Right. That's seats A21 to 24 then. They're very good seats.
That sounds fine.
So let's see, that comes to £38 altogether for the tickets. How do you want to collect them? Shall I put them in the post? They'd be sent today by first-class mail, and there'd be an additional charge of £1 to cover postage and administration. Or do you want to get them from the box office yourself?
Oh, yes. Could you send them, please?
No problem. That'll be £39 altogether.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
Could I just take your card details? What kind of card is it? Visa? Switch?
MasterCard.
Okay. And the number?
It's 3290 5876 4401 2899.
2899. Okay. And the name on the card, please.
It's Mr. J. Whitten. WHITTON.
N for never or M for mother?
N for never.
Thank you. And now I've nearly finished, but I just need your address and postcode.
Yes, it's 42 South Street,
Okay. Is that Plymouth?
London.
And the postcode?
It's SW2 5GE.
That's fine then. The ticket should be with you tomorrow. Is there anything else I can do for you?
Yes, I was wondering if I could get regular information about what's on.
Certainly. I can just add your name to our mailing list. Would that be okay?
That would be very good. Yes, please. Oh, and there is something else, sorry. One of our group is hard of hearing, and I've heard that you can supply special headphones.
That's right. As long as you tell us in advance, we can always do that. I'll book those for you now, and you can just collect them from the box office before the show.
Thanks very much for your help.
No problem. Thank you for calling.
Thank you. Bye.
That is the end of section 1.
Okay,
Now we shall begin.
so remember your answer should only be one word and or a number. Okay. So that will also help you to pick the correct answer sometimes. So let's have a look. So the date should read the 26th or just 26. Okay. If you wrote the time, you can write it in 3 of these ways. Number 3, seats in the circle. Seat row numbers A, 21, 24. Your A could be capital or small letter A. The type of a credit card is a MasterCard. Now it has to have a capital M because it's the name of a company. If you don't have a capital N, you would not get a point for this, a mark for that. Numbers, try to remember in terms of chunks like 3290, 5876. So people try to remember about 4. You can probably comfortably remember 4 words, 4 numbers at a time. So when you're listening, that's what we do, okay? The name Whitten, they spell it out for you, but again, capital W, because it's the name of a person, okay? And the last one is headphones. Now, some people might say, oh, headphones is 2 words, but it says write 1 word and or number. So you cannot have a 2-word answer here, okay? Any questions about this listening? the reason why they put 26 is because I believe that is the way the person said it. And 26 is how we describe a date. Like we wouldn't say the 26, just 26, the number, right? It's the 26. Any other questions? Yeah, if you put it in plural, but it's not plural, then that would be incorrect. Similarly, if it's plural, but you put it in singular, that would be incorrect as well. Okay. All right. Okay. So use your time to read the questions and see the topics before it starts, obviously. Underline keywords to help you focus on the questions. Think of synonyms to help you predict likely content. Okay, so if you hear words that sound the same, etc. Questions follow the recording order. So this is where the concentration is really important. Concentrate on following the recording and not getting distracted by your own thoughts or by looking back at what you've done. Stick to the word limit. Do not copy across extra words. Listen to the intonation. Are they asking a question, making a statement, or okay? So what do we suggest here? Zero or O. Okay, I'm not sure how to answer that question, but you can use all caps if you wish for the answer if you're not sure. Yeah, whether it's a O as in zero or O as in an O would depend on, are you giving them a word or is it are they giving a string of numbers? That's how you would tell, right? Make the most of every opportunity to use English. So if you have native English speakers that you work with, spend more time with them. You know, just be with people who speak English well, and you can definitely improve that way. Set targets for your preparation. Make sure you choose the correct one, academic or general training. Know how you'll be scored. So as again, the list of criteria, you can read the criteria and try to understand if you are able to do the things you need to for a particular level. Remember that IELTS preparation courses focus on test taking rather than language skills. So just taking a course isn't going to make you improve on your proficiency. The course is just to make you familiar with the test so that you at least, know what to do. But it cannot help you improve your language if you're not practicing every day. So I highly suggest that you're watching English programs, hanging around people who speak English. Those habits will, reward itself, will be its own reward. Okay, so make sure you do that. Okay, so every day counts towards language skills. IELTS 7 or higher represent thousands of hours of learning using English. So, if you only just recently learned English, unless you have a talent for learning languages, right? You shouldn't expect to get to 7, right? Do whatever you can, or, anything you can to help yourself would help you improve for sure. All right, so what are some of the next steps? You have a website called IELTSessentials.com, and there's a lot of resources there you can use for sure. So have a look at that. And also this one, which you can pay. This is a paid one. You can have a complete practice test, but this is about $50 some odd, I think, just for one test. But they will give you indicative band scores, and you can check here. Okay. So we come to this point. So thank you for joining us for the complete session, the workshop. So if you have any questions now and would like to stick around to ask your questions, please feel free to do so. And our moderators can help out here. So yeah, moderators, Lilith, I'll pass it to you. I'm not sure if
Yep, thank you so much, May. So our live Q&A is now open for everyone. So if you have any question, please just raise your hand and we will allow you to unmute your mic. Okay, let's begin. Anyone? Okay, first one is Muhammad Nugroho. Hi, Muhammad.
Hi, Muhammad. How are you?
You can now unmute your mic.
Yep, make sure you unmute
All right.
yourself so we can hear you.
Check. Hello.
Yes.
Check.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi. My name is Muhammad Nugroho. I'm from Indonesia. I have
Welcome.
taken IELTS test twice,
Mhm.
and then actually my tutor said that my speaking was kind of fine, and then I don't know what happened, but I got only 6.5 for both. And my tutor actually told me to kind of to have the test rechecked, and they said that it was possible to do so. Is it possible though?
So you're asking if you can have your marks rechecked, like
Yes,
reviewed.
re-evaluated, I think. Yes.
Maybe Lilith, do you want to answer that?
Yes, as long as if you have taken your test within 6 weeks from your test date, you can still ask for remarking. So we call it inquiry on result. So you just need to come down to the test center where you took your test, and then fill in the application form of which skills would you like to be remarked. And then, of course, I think there's some charges on that. And in any case, there will be a change to a higher band score. The payment that you made will be refunded. But if not, it's still the same, then of course none.
Okay, I see. So if my score increases, so they will refund the charges, but if it is not, then they will keep the charge.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so that's kind of pretty risky move, financially speaking. Financially speaking.
You know, Muhammad, perhaps
Yes.
you should practice on a variety of topics. Maybe the topics you were given in the speaking were not, maybe they weren't topics that you had a lot to say about.
Yeah,
or
I see that.
or
Thank you very much, by the way.
So, you're most welcome. And I hope that you can definitely do better, or the best. But again, just have, give good examples, concrete examples, things like that. That will help you definitely. Yeah, because you're only a 0.5 away from the 7, right? Yeah. Okay, sir.
Thank you, Mohammed. Okay, now let's move on to Tort Kong Heng. Hi, Tort. Yes.
Hello, sir. My name is Todd Kong Heng, and I will be taking an IELTS exam soon. So I would like to ask some advice. On the day of my exam, what should I do? Do I need to review again over and over, or do I just stay relaxed and just bring out the main idea?
Well, it's always helpful to be relaxed on a test day. Make sure you have enough sleep the night before. Make sure you are well hydrated the night before, although on the day itself, you may not want to drink too much because you have to go to washroom and stuff like that. But definitely getting enough sleep the night before and not, trying to cram anything last minute, because usually it doesn't work for proficiency tests. Yeah, I guess that's about it. If you want to know what to do exactly, then check with your IELTS office, right? They will, and we usually recommend bringing a sweater or something because it might be kind of cold. We're in the room or whatever, and yeah, that's all you need, I guess. And right, Lilith, they're allowed to bring a bottle of water with them, is that right?
Yes, clear.
Like a clear container, but like
yes,
can be see-through. Yeah. But other than that, you're not allowed to bring anything else into the room, I believe.
Yep, that's right.
So, and also be at the test venue early, right? Especially for, well, both for the, you know, the other components as well as the speaking test. It's important for the speaking test that you're there early. So when they call you, you're not like rushing in last minute, you know, out of breath and that kind of thing. So, you know, little things like that should help you. Okay.
And if I would like to add one more question, just
Sure.
before my speaking test due, what should I do during that time? Should I just go onto YouTube to search some example of speaking test, or should I just relax and try to brainstorm a few idea?
Well, Tort, all those preparations for the speaking test should be done well ahead of time, right? Before you actually go for the test. If you want, you should look up some YouTube examples. There are examples of IELTS speaking there, like, you know, something like the Alexandra one that we saw. You will see more of those. So you can watch a few of those to you know, have a feel for it, for the different parts. And you can even have role play with somebody else if they're willing to play the examiner and ask you questions. Yeah. But you do that, you know, definitely before the day of the test. On the day of the test, you should not be just discovering what's in the test, right? So all the things about the parts of the test and all that you should know, you know, well beforehand.
Yes, thank you so much.
No problem.
Thanks, Tort. Now let's move on to Clementine. Hi, Clement. Hi, Clement. Are you with us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay, cool. It's like this. I am taking the exam for IELTS on using the computer test. Okay, and I was wondering whether if I could bring my own keyboard because I don't know how good of a keyboard that I'm going to touch, and I'm very uncomfortable about germs and such things like that. Is that possible?
Lilette, I think you have to.
Unfortunately, it's not. The test center will provide everything.
Oh, the test center will provide everything. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So best I could do is just probably, do we have time to just wipe it down or something like that?
Of course, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And another thing, on the speaking test for the computer exam, right? I will be speaking and listening one-to-one to an actual examiner, correct?
Speaking is not conducted on the computer. It's done face-to-face with a live with an examiner. So it's often scheduled separately from your other parts of the test.
Yes.
So,
okay, because I received the email that the speaking test is going to be earlier than my written test. So I assume that it will be, it's on the same day. So I assume that it's probably going to be live. Yeah. So that confirms it. Thank you very much.
welcome. And we're okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Clement. Next one is Jenicel Rowa. Hi, Jenicel. Jenicel Rowa, are you with us?
Yes, hello.
Yes, all right, cool.
Okay, good evening from Philippines. So I'm Janessa. I'm gonna ask about the speaking test. So in the Philippines, if I'm going to take in the Philippines, is the examiner Filipino or foreigner?
It actually varies.
Yeah,
different nationalities.
Yeah, the examiners are often from all walks of life and different countries. So you have to get used to, you know, the speech of sort of different countries, people from different countries. So yeah, it won't just be from your own country necessarily. Yeah.
Okay. And one more thing.
Yes.
For speaking, are we allowed to like be a little bit drunk during the exam.
Sorry?
A little bit drunk during the exam for me to be confident in speaking English.
I wouldn't recommend using any kind of stimulant or any kind of, I mean, except coffee maybe, but yeah, because anything that might affect your speech, like if your speech gets slurred or you know, or maybe you get confused about questions, then that's probably not good. You want to have a clear mind when you come for the speaking test. You have to be alert. So that's why I said you should sleep well the night before. Make sure that you are, you know, well rested, that you have something to eat, and, you know, before you come, so that your mind is ready to respond. If you are in any way too tired or exhausted or something, it could affect your performance, right? So speaking is a very variable part of the test because, well, in any test, I mean, your performance could be variable depending on, you know, if you've been out all night the night before or something, and then you're not that prepared for the test. So just make sure you have a good night's rest, you're relaxed and all that, those kinds of things. And, you know, have a cup of coffee before something if you think that helps you. Or some people have Coca-Cola, right?
All right. All right. Thank you. Understood.
Yeah.
Thanks, Janissa. Okay, now let's move on to Archie Ryan Leyesa. Hi, Archie.
Hi, Archie. Are you on? Yep.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening. My question is, I'll be taking the paper-based exam. What do I need to bring in the venue?
Maybe.
Okay. Same thing. I think Mei mentioned earlier. So you just need to bring your identification without any cover, and then also bring a light jacket, and you can also bring a water bottle, clear water bottle. Yeah, that's all.
How about do I need to bring pencils or ball pens?
Okay, there are some test centers who may send you an email requiring you to bring your own stationery. So if they do that, just please follow their instruction accordingly.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next one is Christian Luciano. Hi, Christian.
Hi, you can hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Christian.
Hi, Miss May and Miss Lilette. Thank you for this time. Okay. I just want to ask about the speaking test, whether we can ask the question twice if we can understand the question.
Yeah, definitely if you didn't hear it the first time, yeah, you can always request for the learner to repeat the question, but don't rely on that as a strategy, because if you keep asking them to repeat over and over, it just means that your listening isn't very good as well. So and it will interrupt the examination, because the exam is strictly timed. So if you ask additional things, right, the timing would be sort of off, right? So not really recommended unless you really didn't hear something, but don't do it over and over again, right? In the test.
Okay, thank you. The part 2 got cue cards, right?
Part 2, yes, you'll be given the topic and the questions, like some bullet points, and you have to respond to all the bullet points. So if you get 3 bullet points on the topic, you have to, talk about all 3 of those things.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Christian.
Thanks, Christian. Next is Saadan. Saadan, I'm sorry, Sadan or Saadan. You may unmute your mic. Hi. Okay.
Sadan, are you there?
Okay, I think we can move to the next one. Can we have Fabrian? Sorry.
Oh yeah, thank you very much for the time.
Yep.
I am Febrian from Indonesia, and I would like to ask about speaking.
Yeah, go ahead.
What if I get questions from the interviewer, something that I don't really understand? Maybe the topic is so subject specific, or something that I don't even get the information yet. What do I have to do?
Unfortunately, Febrian, there's nothing much you can do. You have to respond to whatever questions you're given. There's no option to change your topic. So you can't ask, you cannot request the examiner to change to a different topic, right? You just have to respond to the best of your ability to what they're asking you.
Okay, so just give the response then.
Yeah, just give your best response, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fabian. Now let's move on to Enri Nadonga. I guess this is Bernie Nadonga.
Yes. Hi, good evening. Hi, good evening, Miss May. So I have a question about the reading part, because I've been doing some practice questions and I have a hard time answering the headings question, the one where you
the matching ones, right?
Yes, you pick the like the summary of the paragraph. So do you have any tips on how to do well on that part?
The main thing to do is, I mean, what would be the easiest, I think, is to underline or highlight the main topic sentence of each paragraph. And then from the main topic sentence that you've identified, you try to match that with the correct heading. You know what I mean? So if you've already identified the main topic of that paragraph, and you're pretty sure that's the main topic, then you look for a heading that is similar. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
No problem. Hope that helps.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Bernie. Now, can we have Lemuel Saflor?
Ma'am, good evening, everyone.
Yep.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Okay, ma'am. I asking only, ma'am. In post selection, ma'am, in reading, writing, listening, and speaking, ma'am. If I failed, ma'am, in one category, ma'am, can I retake again, or full test, ma'am? Full test.
Oh,
can
the IELTS results that come out are for all the components. So you do not have the option of retaking just one component. If you want to retake, you have to retake the entire test over again. You cannot say,
okay.
oh, I did poorly in my speaking, can I just do the speaking component? No,
Okay.
it's not designed. It's not designed in a modular way.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lemuel. And next one is Fira Alifa. Hi, Fira.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi. Okay. I want to ask about the writing task for the academic. So I've got several times of typical question about writing based on the future development on the side plan or plan. I'm asking, is there anything I have to highlight? Sometimes I find it's kind of confusing, while I always practice about just the trends and how to define it's gonna be like a very good writing for the specific plan or side plan typical questions. Thank you.
Sorry, Fira, can you shorten your question, please? I didn't quite catch what is the main thing that you want to ask about? Is that it's about
writing, the writing task.
One or two?
One.
One.
So I've got it 2 times. So the typical question is about I have to explain about a plan or side plan. So I have to define the comparison. Yes, the plan like plan, floor plans.
The academic test.
Yeah, academic test. So they would provide like 2 different floor plans, certain developments or refurbishments. So I have to explain about that. is there anything that I have to do? I have to highlight because most of the time I only see the practice about the comparison in the trends, bar chart, that kind of thing. So it's
So
kind
you
of like
can-
confusing.
Okay, I understand now. You have to find examples of diagrams, right? So this is the floor.
The last.
Sorry, just listen for a minute. The floor plan is like a map. So there are
Yes.
those that have maps from an aerial view where you look down and you can see different parts. And then they'll give you maybe a map from 10 years ago and one from today, and then ask you what to identify the changes that have occurred. So the same thing with the floor plan is that maybe 10 years ago, the building looked like this, or the floor looked like this, and it had different rooms or whatever. And then when they renovated, they took down the walls or something, and then you have a different sort of design of rooms. So you just have to state the main features, and main features are the things that have changed, right? So maybe the door has been moved, the windows have been enlarged or something, or the walls have been changed, something like that. So you identify what are those main features. Does that make sense? I mean, it's floor plan. I can't see how that would work, but definitely maps of places, right? Like a village. Maybe a village had 5 buildings before. Now it has 500 buildings. I don't know. So you know what has changed. So it's similar to the line graphs and bar graphs, and they always ask about. There's the common thing about change over time, right? Has things changed? So. Yeah. I've not seen a map type that is just one map by itself. It's usually with another map of the same place, but maybe several years later or something. So change over time. So does that help answer your question a little bit?
Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's not really common to have, to get the process one, I mean the diagram ones, but it does happen occasionally. So you can look up on the internet for samples of IELTS questions, task one, questions about, map using diagrams.
Yeah, it's happened to me for the last 2 times for my test. So it's kind of,
It's kind of interesting. They might even give you just a diagram of a picture of something, and this is not common, a picture. And then have parts of a picture, then you have to list what's in the picture. But that's pure description. Like that one has no change over time. It's just, what do you see? So, yeah, not very common. Definitely not as common. But yeah, it's unfortunate you had it 2 times, but yeah.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Fira. So I think last question for the night. Can we have Siri Kanda Jaria Nukun?
Yes. I just want to ask whether if I look aloud during the speaking test, like look at the wall or the ceiling and not look at the examiner's face, would that be minus point for my score?
Yeah, actually, English communication requires eye contact. It's just, that's the culture, okay? And I understand there are some cultures where eye contact is maybe not, it's not polite or something to look people in the eye, but in English cultures, you generally have to do that. If you find that uncomfortable, you can always just look at a different part of the person's face, but do not look at the ceiling or do not look at the wall, because that would be very strange. Like the interaction would be very strange.
Okay.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
I know it might be a cultural thing, right? But yeah,
thank you so much.
No problem. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And then before we end the session, I just would like to answer this question about the recorded session. So within 24 to 48 hours, you will receive an email from us with the links for Facebook. So you can rewatch these in our Facebook pages across Southeast Asia. And do they give you 10 minutes to write your answers and listening test for computer-based IELTS? Unfortunately, no. 10 minutes is only applicable for IELTS on paper. For IELTS on computer, you will be given 2 minutes only to review your answers. Yep. So yeah, I guess that's all for today. And thank you so much for staying with us for more than 2 hours, I guess. It's almost 2.5 hours now. And thank you so much, May, as always, for your patience and for answering all the questions of our participants, and also with my to my lovely co-moderators and co-hosts, William and you. Thank you so much for staying. And any last word or last advice from you, May? Final advice from you, May?
No, but as I said, stay relaxed, get a lot of rest before the test, and make sure that you have practiced some, have a good understanding of how the test works well before the test date, right? So you're not surprised by anything that you're asked. Okay, so I think just get some good practice in there. Okay.
All right. So thank you once again, and best wishes to everyone. Good night.
Good luck wherever you are. Good night. Thanks for that.